Doris Darling. I'm going to welcome our guest today. It will be Hunnie Silk and her dog, Poetry.
Come here, Poetry. Good job.
So, what brings you to our fine city here in New York City?
Well, you actually.
Oh, lovely. Poetry, would you like to sit down, please?
Poetry.
Poetry, come on.
Come here.
Here you go. Good boy. So anyway, I know we're going to be talking a little bit about one of my favorite musical stars. And so maybe you want to talk a little bit about who are you talking about?
Yes, so actually, one of my favorites as well, we are going to be talking about Bob Dylan. He was born May 24th, 1941, and thankfully, he is still alive. He was born in Minnesota, Duluth, in a small town called Hibbing, and he stayed in the New York area, mainly in Greenwich Village, but did move to Woodstock, and he did genuinely stay in that area.
I'm just wondering, it's great to know when he was born and where he lived, but can you tell us a little bit more about who he was as the person? Did he have any struggles in life?
He did. He struggled a lot with addiction to heroin, and he did have suicidal thoughts. So there was talks about him having an alcoholic problem, but he did kick that in the butt. Thank you. He did use heroin because of his long tours. He was gone for a very, very long time, and he would get tired and exhausted. So he thought that the only way to keep going was to start heroin, and he said it helped him get through the days. But I will say that he did not use it to come up with his songs or lyrics or anything along those lines. He used it to just get by the day.
So can you tell us a little bit about his music? And so I know that it wasn't just regular happy-go-lucky songs, that what he was trying to do was basically be an activist. So talk a little bit about his music and his style.
Yes, so actually, when he first started out, he was just like any other artist. But then he started to see issues in our world. So he did stand up for a lot of social justice issues, such as the civil rights movement. He stood up for the anti-war sentiment and social justice itself, and he did have freedom of speech. So if we go back to our civil rights movement, he did perform at events, and they were towards racial discrimination, lack of voting rights, and the unemployment among African Americans. So he wrote the song Blowin' in the Wind and Only Pawn in the Game, which then went on to be anthems for this movement, which is spectacular. For the anti-war sentiment, his songs would criticize the Vietnam War that was going on during that time, and a war in a nutshell. So he would express his music and his voice, his opinions, through his lyrics and his songs. And he wanted to fight for peace. That's something he was very passionate about. Social justice itself, he would talk about his opinions on poverty and equality. He would talk about the war, as we mentioned before. And for his freedom of speech, he used his voice. He was eager to show how he felt about all these aspects and wanted it to be known that he was fighting for these things.
So I just want to know, do you think that his music and his activism actually had an impact on the public?
Absolutely, I think this. In fact, all of his uncles did serve in the military, and he personally did want to serve as well. He was going to go to West Point, and he was very intrigued by the heroic battles. He personally, when he was about to go to West Point, the Vietnam War was going on, which grew his passion even more. I will say that he was definitely itching to learn more about the war and further fighting for things that he was passionate about. He learned about the cost of conflict between things such as the human to war, how it affected day-to-day life. In his early times for advocating, he got a lot of mixed emotions, some good, some bad, but this did forever change him to want to make this his identity. He would start to integrate these things into his songs. He would put his passion, which was music, and his passion for his activism into these lyrics. And he started exploring different types of music styles and would definitely dig deeper and deeper and deeper into his personal experiences and just seeing day-to-day life and how this did impact him, which further led him to be more vocal about it. Sorry everybody, poetry had a little accident and needed some attention. But we're back now, thank you for waiting.
Okay. So I'm really liking what you're telling me about his life and his style. And so you talked about some of the social justice issues. Would you suggest that he was an ally to the groups that were struggling to find their voice?
Yes, absolutely. For those who were struggling, he would use his voice to express what they were maybe thinking, maybe feeling, and he would add another layer to that by also expressing it in his music, like I mentioned before. And this was very, very important. He sang for the civil rights movement. He participated in many, many, many social justice issues, and he's shown support of various movements and various people in his songs, actually, which we are going to talk about later. There's actually a pretty cool thing. Poetry has now moved everybody.
Yes. I think poetry likes me.
Yes, poetry must love you.
I think so.
And anyway, so he just wanted to strive for greater change, and he actually has made many, many donations reaching millions of dollars to many charities and causes, which is phenomenal, just to say the least.
So I'm just curious, so what kind of impact on changing things was his music, his donations? What changed?
Well, to say the least, he became a very, very powerful voice for his generation. And he would talk about concerns, his frustrations towards the causes he would fight for. He was very passionate in that aspect. And as I've mentioned previously before, he fought for civil rights activism movement, war, social justice, and others along those lines. He popularized those movements through his songs, which may not have been known before or may not have been thought to said. So having people listen to those songs and having people feel what's being said is very impactful, and it would be reaching people outside of his audience. So maybe people would be disagreeing with him or disagreeing with the movement for that matter, and then maybe seeing in a different aspect. Maybe not have it being said to them, but have it being sung, have it being expressed in a different way. It was very important for that to be able for him to do that for those people, because sometimes people don't understand just with words. They need to feel it in music, feel it in the verses that he's speaking. And he was very, very passionate about those things. And he wanted to establish that there was problems that needed to be addressed. And he did everything he could to deliver those messages. It may not have been a normal way to do it, such as how you and I are talking right now, but it was in a bit more of a unique way. And a very awesome thing that's pretty cool is he did win a Nobel Prize for literature. He was recognized for the importance of his voice, which he used aside from his music. So I know we've been talking about how he used it in his music, but not only did he use it in his music, he spoke about it, and he reached others.
Awesome. Okay, so now do we want to talk a little bit about his music and the songs that you wanted to share with the audience?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a few songs written down here. We have a hard rains are gonna fall. So this is about the Cold War and the threat of nuclear war. And our other song is going to be Only a Pawn in Their Game. So this is addressing the issue faced by African Americans in which he was fighting in the civil rights movement, as we've talked about before. And this is also a song about the assassination of civil rights activist Medgar Evans. So, if we're going to dive deeper into these songs, we could talk about the verses. So here's a verse. I've been 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard, and it's a hard rains are gonna fall. So this emphasizes that the graveyard could mean being close to death, or being close to the war, and all the deaths surrounding war. So the hard rain could mean the hard truth of reality, the cruelty of this world. And the song was a protest of the war that was going on, to just add another layer. Another verse is, I saw a newborn baby with wild wolves all around. This verse can mean that young children have a full future ahead of them, but they are trapped. They are trapped in this war that is holding them back. This war that is full of enemies and predators, otherwise known as in the verse, wild wolves, which is very sad. Our last quote for the song, for the song, A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall, is, I met a young child beside a dead pony. This verse to me is very powerful. A young child witnessing death. The death of things all around them. The death from this war that no child should be having to witness. The world crumbling around them. The animals and the people being taken away from them. Loved ones, people they didn't know, people in their community. These people or animals, they have an impact on this world, and they were taken far too soon. The other song we are going to talk about, which we have said before, is Only a Pawn's in Their Game. So the verses that we are going to say are, a bullet from the back of a bush took Medgar Evans' blood. As I mentioned before, this song was about partially the assassination of the civil rights activist. So it shows how the bush part shows how it was kind of like a sneaky thing to do, how it was shifty and devious. And the assassination was an act of racism, and it was voiced clearly here. The other quote we are going to talk about is, he can't be blamed. He's only a pawn in their game. I think this is a very important quote to have in here, because Bob Dylan was trying to push the fact that the killer isn't the only one who pulled the trigger. He isn't the only one to be blamed. He wouldn't have shot the gun if it wasn't for the people around him, which is the sad reality of this truth. It's the system around him that was pushing white supremacy. And and the next quote is kind of along the lines of that. So we have, but poor white man's used in the hands of them all like a tool. So here he's explaining that they are all not to blame. They were not born with these bad and terrible thoughts. They weren't born to, like this one guy who assassinated. They weren't born like that. They weren't thinking the minute they got out of the womb, I'm going to assassinate someone. It was the system that was set up for them, and it's the reason why they're thinking like that. The people who are in power set up this system, and they failed their people, which is the sad truth. So.
Wow, that was pretty powerful. So let's talk about you. Now that you've done all this research and you've learned about Bob Dylan, and you seem to have really caught on to his social activism and his ability to find his voice, I'm just wondering, thinking about today, where we are right now, what social issues are you passionate about as an individual?
So one that definitely speaks to me a great bit would have to be mental health.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So actually, when I was little, mental health was something I was big on, as I just grew up with having to know what these things meant and understanding the difference in mental health, how there's different aspects. It's such a big thing, and it's very, there's so many topics inside of it, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, I'd like you to give me a little bit more detail
Yes,
on that.
Yes, of course. I was getting into that.
Okay.
Don't worry. So actually, when I was younger, I saw this young girl who was leaning over a bridge, and something inside me sparked. Something said, I need to help that girl. So I jumped out of the car, and just as she was about to go over, I pulled her in, and I don't know how I knew what to say or how I knew to do that, but something inside me sparked. And, you know, she's doing good to this day. She got the help she needed, and the officer spoke some very powerful words to me, and he said, you saved a life tonight. And those words do stick with me to this very day. Also, my family, a lot of my family did struggle with mental health, and I wanted to find out how I could help them. How, maybe not just them, but how I could help other people. And this pushed me to learn more about mental health itself, and how I can help people around us that are struggling. And so sometimes mental health does push people to do things that they wouldn't normally do, or that they wouldn't normally say, or anything along those lines. And this issue is widely known, and I know many, many, many people who do use music to cope with their mental health.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, can you think of some songs that maybe would help to advocate and support people in understanding mental health?
Yes, absolutely. So I do have a few songs that I was going to share already, and I have them written down here. So we have Lovely by Billie Eilish and Khalid. This song expresses depression, emptiness, and just simply surviving through those struggles. I also have I Am Not Who I Was by Chance Pena. This song talks about trauma, depression, and anxiety. It also talks about dignity and how to let go of guilt that was hung on to, and how he surpassed the dark place and battled it out with his mental health, which is always a positive. And then our last song that I have is 28 by Zach Bryan. It talks about the struggles of when you enter your 20s, which is definitely a big thing, is when you hit that mental health block. You face immense challenges, being confused about life, debating yourself, and then just the exhaustion of the emotions that you're feeling. So let's go a little bit more in depth about these quotes. So for our first quote by Billie Eilish, we have, Isn't it lovely, all alone, heart made of glass, my mind of stone. So this verse is actually very impactful. It's not just signaled to just this song, but to many, many, many people. So it talks about how she's feeling alone, and her heart may easily shatter, but emotions she is stowing away. And a lot of the time, this is actually linked to depression. When you are showing that you're fine, but inside you're really struggling, and you don't know what to do. So another quote I have is, I thought I found a way out, but you never go away. So this here is just further emphasizing that depression, that anxiety, or any other thing along those lines. And that those feelings don't just go away. It's just a constant cycle that not only she is going through in this song, but that people go through every single day. And our last quote we have is, Tear me to pieces, skin and bone. Hello, welcome home. So here she's talking about how the pain can just keep eating away at her, and it's breaking her down. She starts to accept it as the new normal by saying, hello, welcome home. As in, when you're in your home, that's your home. It's part of you. It's part of your everyday. So it's now, those feelings are now her home, if you get what I'm saying. And for our second song, I'm Not Who I Was, we have I was stuck in a maze full of hurt, full of rage, full of doubt, full of pain. This verse here is talking about how he's stuck with these emotions and pain he is in. He is depressed and he's struggling. But does he understand? Our next quote is, but I am not who I was. No, I am not who I was. This one's a bit more of a positive quote, if you would say. He's talking about how he's not the same as he once was. When he was struggling, when he was going through things that he couldn't quite understand. And he's now changed. It may not be who he once was, who that struggling guy once was, or even who he was before those struggles, but he's grown and he's changed, and for the better. He's no longer struggling with those demons. He broke past the barrier. Our third quote for the song is, I buried my heart in the dark. I've been torn apart and left with the shame. So here he's talking about how he tried to shove his pain somewhere else. Tried to shove it where there was nowhere for it to go. He tried to get rid of it, get rid of his pain, and it ended up causing him more pain in a way, and which ended up giving him shame when he realized. And so he further tried to numb the pain, but it doesn't go away. So for our last song, we have 28 by Zach Bryan. And so our first quote is, these days I just work, I sleep, I drink, I eat. Here he's talking about how he is stuck in the same constant struggle. He is detached from the reality of this world. He's just doing the same thing over and over again. And this is his depression that he's battling with. So our second quote is trying to find the Lord in the neon light. So in this verse, he's trying to find out why he is feeling this way, why these things are happening to him. He's looking for answers that aren't there. Why the answers being, why is he feeling these emotions? He's using other things to distract himself. And those neon lights can be many, many things. It could be your phone, it could be the lights outside, it could be the city, anything really. And our third quote and our last quote is, my body's quit listening to the stuff my mind says. He says how he isn't doing the things he wants to do, how he isn't able to control himself, and maybe even his emotions for that matter. His depression, his anxiety. He isn't in tune with himself, which leaves him struggling, which we do go through every day. Not all of us, but a lot of us.
So listening to that, and I can hear the passion in your voice about mental health and how it impacts on folks. So I'm just wondering, when you were younger, you were able to help that one girl. What about now? What are the things that you can do in your life where you are at this time that will continue to combat the mental health concerns of the people in our community?
Yes, absolutely. So something that I do believe in with my whole heart is speaking up about mental health, which I'm trying to do here is not only with Bob Dylan, with his struggles with heroin, and which was a mental health struggle, and his suicidal thoughts, which was a mental health struggle, but the things going on around us. How can I help? How can I make a difference? So something that I try to do and that I am going to do more of is telling others my stories that I'm seeing firsthand, or maybe not even firsthand, but that I've heard from others, or really anywhere. Just stories to push the fact. Oh, by poetry. To push the fact that mental health is important. And telling these things to people is not only a great way to endorse this cause, but maybe they'll talk about it too. And right now, mental health is not talked about nearly enough, at all for that matter. And it does need to be addressed more. So I actually have a job lined up that I'm going to start now soon, and where I will be learning about mental health. And I'll be gaining some experience, hearing stories from others, and maybe, who knows, maybe I'll be able to tell those stories to others and share what I learn to maybe someone who is struggling or someone who knows someone who is struggling. And another thing that does go along those lines is being more involved in the community. Being more involved, you never know, you may reach people that you would never reach before. And being involved in the community does help spread the word of mental health, and I'm able to share my knowledge and knowledge of others. So I can't wait to get started.
Oh, well, that's very good. I want to thank you, Hunnie Silk. It's been such a pleasure to have you here on the show. I wish you all the best in your endeavors, and I hope that poetry will has enjoyed himself here today and will be on his way home to wherever. So thank you very much, and to the rest of the folks, this is
Doris Darling likes for us to finish off the show. So thank you for watching this episode. It was a pleasure having all of you here, and I hope you tune in to this episode of Deep Dive Doris with Doris Darling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doris.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Deep Dark Doris.
Deep Dark Doris? What? How did you get deep dark?
Deep Dive Doris.
Okay, restart.
Okay, can I just start now?
Yeah. You can start whatever you want.
Okay. Are you going to do those cuts like they did last year?
Yes.
Okay.